In the great Akira Kurosawa's 1950 classic Rashomon, we open on a scene of four men sitting under a shelter, their heads bowed while rain falls in a torrential downpour. Takashi Shimura plays the woodcutter, and as he raises his head, we see trouble in his eyes. He's confused, perplexed, generally distraught. He says, "I can't understand it. I just can't understand it at all." A commoner runs under the shelter to join the men, and Shimura's woodcutter says it again, "I just can't understand it." The commoner who just arrived says, "What's the matter? What can't you understand?" To which the woodcutter, still distraught, staring off in the distance, sort of empty, hollow eyes, bogging with confusion and perplexed nature, replies, "I've never heard of anything so strange." The commoner presses him again, "Why don't you tell me about it?" But the woodcutter doesn't reply. He just stares off with those wild, confused eyes. The commoner sees that a priest is sitting under the shelter, so he says, "Good thing we have a priest here. He looks smart." To which the priest replies, "Oh, even Abbot Conan of the Kiyomitsu Temple, though he's known for his learning, wouldn't be able to understand this." And why am I reenacting and retelling the opening scene of a Japanese classic film from 1950? Because as I walked from the press box at Amon G. Carter Stadium last Friday, dodging raindrops in the gloomy Fort Worth cold, I was the woodcutter, repeatedly muttering to myself, "I can't understand it. I just can't understand it at all." Blowing a 25-point lead in the fourth quarter, blowing a 3-touchdown lead with 4 minutes to go, kicking a field goal to go up 34-13 with 6 minutes left, only to be trailing 35-34 the next time the offense took the field. I've never heard of anything so strange. Truly, the great Abbot Conan of the Kiyomitsu Temple wouldn't be able to understand this. But it happened. I was there, and I witnessed it. And really, I probably shouldn't have spent the next 6 hours after that game repeating the words of the woodcutter, "I can't understand it, I just can't understand it at all," over and over into the Fort Worth night. And then again on the flight home to Pittsburgh the next morning. In fact, there were a lot of woodcutters on that plane. Seemed like every other person was saying the same thing. "I just can't understand it at all." But it happened, and we all saw it, and let's be honest, we've seen it before. Maybe not the exact scenario, since that exact scenario has never happened before, but we've seen it, haven't we? I started covering Pitt football in 2005, so I've been there for a lot of it. In 2005, I was there in Athens, Ohio for the Pick 6 when Matt Kavanaugh failed to understand the difference between NFL hash marks and college hash marks. In 2006, I was there when the team started 6-1, needed just one game to achieve bowl eligibility, to reach a bowl game, which is really just the bottom level of what a college football program should be able to achieve, and they lost 5 games in a row. I was there for multiple overtimes against Navy when Pitt opted to throw fade passes after dominating the run game all day. I was there for that. I feel like that song, Sympathy for the Devil. I hung around in Piscataway when the ref stole a TD. I shouted out, "Who fumbled at Louisville?" when after all, it was Pat and Shady. I was there for all of that. 2008, I was there for Bowling Green and the Sun Bowl. Those serve as the bookends for the season, but the real gut punch was in the middle. They lost to Bowling Green, then they beat Buffalo, Iowa, they won at Syracuse, they beat South Florida, who was a top 10 team on the road on a Thursday night, and they won at Navy convincingly, sort of exercising the ghosts of the previous year. And then they came home to face Rutgers. You remember that game? You know what happened? Mike freaking Teal happened. 2009, 45-44. Do I need to say anything more about that? 2010, Connecticut, the 4th-and-1 game. 2011, the Iowa game where they had a 3-touchdown lead in the second half and blew that. And the Utah game where they scored a couple of defensive and special teams touchdowns and still couldn't win the game. 2012, yes, Youngstown State, but Notre Dame. They missed a field goal to beat the top team in the country. 2013, the Navy game, North Carolina to some extent with the punt returns. 2014 was full of these games. Iowa, Akron, Duke, Georgia Tech, Houston. 5 legitimate head-scratchers. 5 games where you walked out and said, just when you think you've seen everything. And we should know better by now than to use that phrase. Like I said last week, it's a new day in Pitt sports. It's a new day. Maybe we're finally past the point where we say, boy, just when you thought you've seen everything. New football coach, new athletic director, new chancellor. For better or for worse, Pitt Athletics is on a new path. And any path that leads away from that game last Friday and that pattern of the last 10 years is a good one.